All right, now we're going to move into the future, and Susanna.
Well, what are the planners predicting? Green Valley population rose considerably between 2000 and 2010. And in the future, the growth is expected to continue at about the same rate. Sahuarita population was 29,318 in 2017, and they also expect to see growth, but we weren't able to find a specific projection of what that growth would be. Part of the growth is going to be through the development plans that FICO has. They have 5,900 acres that they're going to develop into residential and commercial development. They have great plans for River Park and Linear Greenway, and they are hoping to attract people of all ages to their amenities. And you can see how here it is the river, right? And here is the development that they're planning to replace their pecan orchard with. So it'll be mixed commercial and residential. It will also have an eco resort associated with their river restoration plans, and cover about 1,100 acres. But and so the question is, what is this going to do about water use in the area? And the answer is that it will actually reduce the amount of water being used on that land. Because pecans use more water per acre than the number of households that they are planning to put on an acre of land in the development. So it could be, depending on the water use of the establishments, it could be a wash, it could be the same amount of water, or if they're talking about water conserving residences and commercial establishments, it could actually be using less water. And now we come to Rosemont Mine, which we don't have any opinion on.
We do.
So, although the mine has CAP water and is using it now to recharge in other areas, it will not be taking CAP water directly. It will be taking groundwater. And when complete, it will be the third largest copper mine in the U.S., using 6,000 acre-feet of water per year. And there is a picture of the area where it is projected to be. I think we're talking right here.
I think there's another bit if you forward the slide.
Oh, if I forward the slide, they'll leave. Oh, okay. And here, Rosemont is helping to, is funding a project to bring CAP water into recharge basins in this area, working with Community Water Company of Green Valley and others. And this is where the Rosemont pipeline, or funded pipeline, would end in a recharge basins. So you can see there's where the mine will be pulling out groundwater, and here's where the water will be going in.
And the mine's actually east of that. So the mine is up over the mountain. So they're pulling it from the west side.
Yeah.
It's on the other side of the
Yeah.
Sahuarita. Or will be. On the east side.
And-
On the east. Other side.
Okay,
We won't be able to see it. So-
Rosemont wells, here and here, oh, that's interesting, look at that. They're gonna pipe groundwater from here all the way over the mountain. There you go.
I guess we were wrong about that.
What is this thing?
It's hard to read it. It's a little embarrassing, sorry about that.
I don't know what that is.
Sahuarita's where the water's coming from.
Water dropping in somebody's lens.
No, there's something in there, we're gonna have to
Figure
fix
that out.
that, yeah. Okay, so,
How will that affect Green Valley? Oh, right there.
so the design capacity of the water, the CAP water pipeline that Rosemont is paying to construct is 28,000 acre-feet per year. And the initial recharge will be much less than that, but they're expecting to add capacity in the future. And there you see and a diagram that shows different kinds of recharge and how it affects the water table. So this is what you can expect from recharge from the Renews project. I believe it's going to be basins, and so the water table comes up a little bit underneath the recharge basins. The other thing that FICO is doing is that they have gotten themselves permitted as a groundwater savings facility. A groundwater savings facility is a facility where an agricultural entity that has been using groundwater and would continue to use groundwater agrees to take CAP water instead, and therefore saves groundwater. So the people who supply the CAP water, the people who actually have the allocation, get credit for the water saved. So in this case, we have Freeport, McMoran has a permit to store water in FICO's groundwater savings facility. It's even more complicated than that because they're using water coming from the Gila River Indian community. The pipeline will then deliver 10,000 acre feet of water per year, which will allow Freeport and FICO to get long-term, what's called long-term storage credits, which allows them to meet groundwater supply regulations for water use. They can also sell them if they want to, but that's a whole different story. So that's a much better explanation than I had visually, what happens in a groundwater savings facility. And look, we're closing in on the final chapter.
Here we go, a little bit more. So landscaping that contains and distributes water would also be rainwater harvesting. So does anybody have that? So if you have berms and and then also,
We have a groundskeeper.
yeah. All right, I'm gonna quickly go through this, what can you do bit. There's a lot you can do, and we're gonna talk about, well, what's the importance of what you do as well at the end. But just to give you a feeling for rainwater harvesting and what you have, this is Green Valley in this area receive 14 inches of rain per year. That's a lot of rain. That's actually quite a lot of rain, but it comes in the summers mainly. So it's not consistent. So how can rainwater harvesting and green and desert landscaping work together to give you a lovely environment without using a lot of water? I think right now it's between 45 and 50% of water is outdoor water use. So you can really make a difference with just your outdoor water use. A lot of the indoor water use conservation has actually changed as appliances have come in that are water conservation appliances, and now it's really hard to buy, for example, a high flow toilet. So a lot of that is sort of implemented just as we, update our homes or buy new homes. So primarily this comes in summer, right? Thunderstorms, and it can be highly variable. Here's a predicted climate sort of information. This is actually plant hardiness zones. So I'm showing you this because if you look at this picture compared to that picture, you see that the actual kinds of plants that thrive in the region will change as the temperatures increase. That doesn't mean there aren't plants or it's a dust bowl. It just means that there's going to be different kinds of plants that are healthy in our environment as it heats up. So who owns the rainwater, right? Can I just take it out of the sky off my roof? Yes, you can. And that's a very nice thing. At the lot scale, you are able to do that. This is not true in every state. Some states think it belongs to the downstream user and they don't allow residents to take it off their roof and use it beneficially. At the neighborhood scale, it's a city, municipality, a flood control district, and then when you get to the much bigger state areas like a water course or a river, it's the downstream surface water appropriators. So the people that are using it already downstream may prevent you from taking that water out of the river. So that's why when you have a big stormwater, people have often thought, all this rain coming down, can't we just catch it in a big basin and pump it out? Well, you can't do that because you're actually, if you're doing it at the bottom of the basin, you're actually taking the resource from whoever was going to use that river downstream. So the only way to take that water into your community is at the top of the watershed. And the top of the watershed is your roof, right? The top of the watershed is where it falls. It's your roof, it's upstream, it's the space right outside of your house. That's the top, okay? So it's the capture and diversion of water. This is an example of a berm system where it's coming off the roof and they're holding it in a berm and it's making these trees just flourish, and it really makes a difference to your trees, way more than watering more. Your trees are so much happier with a basin. It's really the way, if you go into the natural environment, you'll see it's the natural way things are out there. The changes in the slopes, and oh look, there's that tree right in a little basin. It wanted to be there, and so it's really mimicking nature. And then active rainwater harvesting, where we have cisterns and put those in, and that allows us to store the water and use it at a time when it maybe isn't raining. So you can also take it off sidewalks, you can take it off, your hardscape, your driveway. All those places are little tiny rainwater harvesting basins, and you didn't even know it. We have this harvesting site on our website that talks all about it. There's also a great bunch of information on the U of A Arboretum page. So we have a lot of information out there to tell you about rainwater harvesting. So I'm not going to go through all of it, but I will tell you a little more data so you understand what you're dealing with here. So one of the things you have to think about with rainwater harvesting is evapotranspiration. The plants are using the water and they're transpiring that water into the air. So that's one of the mechanisms that takes place. And it affects how much water you have to have on your plant. So if you look over here and the rain barrels use box, these are times where you have high evapotranspiration. So the plants are using a lot, and the hotter it gets, with climate change, it's gonna get hotter, and the plants have to move more water through them to be healthy. And then also you're getting lower rainfall. So those are the periods when you have to supplement with water, and probably will have to supplement with water more as we go forward in the future. So you can store water. I'm gonna really quickly go through this. I just want you to know that you can calculate it all. You can calculate how much ground you have, you can calculate how much roof you have, you can figure out how much comes off of there, and you can put it in a barrel, and you can know those things. There are lots of places to find that information. What are the benefits? All kinds of benefits. One you may not be thinking about is your property value. It very much increases, there's lots of studies that show that it increases resale. It increases your property value. These are things that you can tell others when you're out there and they say, why would we do that? That's often a compelling reason for people. Also, if you're in a commercial area, putting in trees, people are much more likely to shop in a place where there's shade, where they can walk from store to store and have shade. So it increases the economic vitality of a community. The aesthetics, soil health. Soil health is a big deal. We're finding out more and more how important the microbes in the soil are. And one of the things that what rainwater harvesting does is pulls the water off the street often into a basin, and if you have a healthy microbial environment, then it will actually break down those volatile organic compounds, the oils. It'll break that down and clean that water. Wildlife habitat, stormwater quality, it's kind of like having a distributed wildlife habitat all across your urban setting. So it can be slightly acidic, and it can dissolve materials. It can dissolve airborne impurities, and there can be microbial contamination. But there are also a lot of studies about how it doesn't get into fruit trees, so you can have a fruit tree and have rainwater harvesting even with coming off a street, and it doesn't affect the fruit. So mine tailing dust is a source of pollution in the Green Valley area. So you might be thinking, oh no, the rainwater can pull that stuff down. But fortunately, the concentrations of contaminants in mine tailings are not dissimilar from the background levels. So you really aren't looking at something that's dramatically different. In fact, look at over here, tailings has three, I don't know what those numbers are, milligrams per kilogram, and background soil is 221.6. So a little more in copper. Copper's a little higher, but the rest are pretty similar. Gray water, just gonna say a couple things about this. Gray water is when you take the water out of your household utilities and you use it outside. You don't take it out of your toilet. You do take it out of your sink or your shower or your washing machine. An interesting thing about that is that the washing machine water actually, when a washing machine puts out water, it actually is pumped out, so you can move that water farther across your landscape if it's a washing machine than if it's just a gravity-fed drain from a shower. And there's no significant irrigation impacts except for maybe a few plants that have a few issues. We've gone over that. So home gray water use is permitted. So you just need to know you're not breaking any rules. 20 years ago you would have been, but you're not anymore. And as long as gray water is less than 400 gallons per day, and I hope it is that is the case for all of you, that nobody here is taking a 400-gallon shower, so we're good. How do you assess your actions? Well, they definitely contribute to a healthier urban ecosystem, but it is important to remember that you're not the largest water user. Industrial and municipal water suppliers, they're the bigger water user, and they're gonna have to do, their conservation methods will have the greater impact on the overall water resource, greater than you can do because you're not using as much water. That doesn't mean it's not important, but it is a reason to be sure that you don't just think about yourself, you actually try and communicate this to your water providers and industries. So, policy and industrial action is really very important, is my point on this particular one. Seeking a sustainable future, very quickly, current future projects will definitely impact the water resilience of the region. So these are things that are going to make a difference. Cap water, groundwater savings facilities, FICO redevelopment, Sahuarita mine, reuse of remediated water. All those things are things that do affect your water resources significantly. And as we look to a sustainable future, here's a few takeaways to think about. Both Green Valley and Sahuarita have significant groundwater resources, but it's important to know that they are in overdraft, and we have to be mindful of that. Not that we can't keep pumping, but it costs more, you have to clean it, and there are regulations that you have to meet to try and not pump too much groundwater. Maintaining these resources require community awareness and participation. That's why we're so happy you're here today, and we're happy to be here today to talk about these things. It really does take everybody on the same page. And then it's also good to know, have the solace that the community, water managers, farms, mines, they are all working together through this complicated construct of water management that we've been talking about. It does make these big water users have to combine forces and think together and work together. And so that is good for us. That is good for all of Arizona. And that's, you can try and do this. No, it didn't come through. We have a problem with that. Okay.
I might also mention that the EPA has been advocating for rainwater harvesting recently for stormwater. And because of that, it's being adopted nationwide much more than it had been 10 years ago.
Yes.
Do you know offhand, has Pima County made any change to their rules and regulation? I hear it's in the works, but nothing official yet?
I don't think so.
Not yet?
No.
I have a similar question to the one back here. At the state level, what do you call it, the Water Resource Department? Do they have a master plan for allocating water to various users, agriculture, industry, mining, and so on?
No.
That would step on too many toes, right?
No, and people talk, people have, that topic has come up again and again and again, an idea, and it touches on an issue that we deal with all the time, which is the different regulation of groundwater and surface water. And the fact that they're not managed the same way, or even by necessarily not even by the same regulations. So that makes it very challenging. So there's no master.
The only requirement is that water be used beneficially, and the state does define beneficial use. But as long as the use, it's a very broad, it includes agriculture and industry and municipal, and it even now includes some in-stream flood uses. So other than that, allocation is private.
The question is, where can we find this online? There's so much information.
Right, so we're going to post this, we're actually going to create a web page with all the links to this information and probably a fact sheet on that site. So it isn't out yet, but we have your sign-in information, we'll get you that, we'll send it out to everybody that signs in. Okay, thank you.
Let's give them a warm thank you for their hard work.